Watch and burn.
Hey everyone, so tonight I wanted to discuss the film Night of the Comet. Now, in a lot of ways this movie is super famous, but as the years roll on and on, the movie becomes less and less known, of course. This movie, it did so well at the box office. I think it had a $700,000 or $800,000 budget, and it brought in roughly $15 million. So it did do well, but then it was sort of forgotten somewhat. And then in its later years, through the course of the 90s and the early 2000s, I mean, definitely through the early 90s, it taken on a cult status. And Kelli Maroney's character, Samantha, the cheerleader, she was Joss Whedon, or one of Joss Whedon's influences on him creating Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So now, of course, I'm not sure which aspect of Buffy she influenced. I don't know if she influenced the entire character, as in the film with like Donald Sutherland, or if it was the TV show Buffy with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I'm not sure if Joss Whedon was influenced after he made his first movie, and then, or if this was prior to. That I'm not 100% about. If I had to guess, I would assume that he was influenced prior to making the film with Christy Swanson and Donald Sutherland as a result of seeing this film, and then he decided to base Swanson's character, Buffy, after Kelli Maroney's character in this, Samantha. But then again, you never know. Maybe he saw the movie, made the movie, and then he said, oh fuck, I can't get that movie out of my head. My movie was good, but I'm going to make the TV show Buffy more like Maroney's character. At the end of the day, who knows? Somebody probably knows, but it's not me. We're not discussing that much. We're not supposed to be discussing that anyways. Today we are discussing the film Night of the Comet. So what happens is two sisters, Regina and Samantha. Fuck, I've already said her name a couple times. You'd think I'd remember. Regina and Samantha, they are out on the night that the comet is showing up and everybody's celebrating, and the movie theater, I believe, where Regina works, they're selling all this comet-related gear and everyone's getting ready for the comet. And so she falls asleep in the back room of the movie theater where I believe she works. And when she wakes up the next day, everyone's gone. And she goes home and everyone's gone. And then her sister, Samantha, Kelli Maroney, she comes home and she says that she wasn't able to get into the house, yada, yada, yada. So she ended up having to sleep in a storage shed, an all-steel storage shed, because as it turns out, the only way that they were able to survive not either being evaporated by the comet or being turned into these like zombie-ish people as the result of the effects of the comet but they were able to stave this off by staying in some type of metal structure. Regina's love interest, when he comes into the movie eventually, he stayed in the cab of his transport truck. Of course, it's all steel, and that's why he wasn't affected by it. And so there's nobody left, and this is sort of like a very typical take on the post-apocalyptic dystopian world where there's only a handful of survivors and there's a group of evil scientists, of course, and they're on the surface they seem really good, but they're not all that great in the end. And as it turns out, a number of the scientists, well, pretty much all of the scientists have been affected by the comet, and they are slowly turning into these I don't know if I'd really classify them as zombies, because the zombie people in this movie, they still think, and they have ambition, and they want to keep living, and they want the world to be the way they want it. So they're able to walk, talk, and think, so I don't really know if they should be classified as zombies per se, but they kind of are at the same time. They're mutated, I suppose. That's always kind of confused me. It felt kind of rushed, actually, that aspect of the movie. Otherwise, though, I say this movie is great. I can understand why, after so many years, it has obtained the cult status that it has, and why so many people like it. As of the filming of this, which is mid-July 2022, I've seen this movie about 6 or 7 times, and I like it every time I watch it a little bit more. I love how, for the most part, everything works out. They sort out the scientists, they get out of that research facility, and then they just kind of I don't know. They go on as a family. They decide to repopulate the Earth. And then Kelli Maroney's character, Samantha, she doesn't have a boyfriend. And at the end of the movie, this guy pulls up driving a Mercedes. He's like, hey, yeah, I found it. He's like, I'm another survivor. And then she's like, I'm going to go off with this guy. And then her sister, Regina's like, all right, well, you make sure, you're home by midnight and all this shit. And they have a family because they've come across a couple kids at the scientists' research facility where they were going to kill the kids. And so Regina and Samantha and the boyfriend, whose name I can't remember, they save the day and save the kids. And so at the end of the movie, they're all wearing expensive clothing that, of course, they didn't pay for because it's kind of their world now. And as it's shown at the very last scene, as Samantha's love interest is introduced briefly, there are other survivors, and they do, at least the impression that we get from the guy driving the car who hits on Samantha, they're decent. So I don't think there's going to be much of a risk of a Mad Max type apocalypse ever happening in this world. And I like that because these movies, they can get pretty heavy-handed pretty quickly by way of always throwing in like the two warring tribes who want control, and there was really none of that in this movie. The scientists, of course, were the bad guys, but even they weren't that hard to handle. The main cast were able to sort of expedite things rather quickly and efficiently regarding how they took out the scientists and how they escaped. And then there doesn't seem to be much of a threat left to them. The world is just kind of theirs. The world's their oyster, or whatever the fuck that saying is. And it completely applies here because it is. There's not a lot of people left, and the people that are left seem very cool. And I love this movie. I love how cleanly it was shot. I love how I believe the city was actually vacant. I love how, because of their military background, the two sisters are perfectly competent using automatic weapons. And I love how all of these elements are just sort of tossed into the hat and somehow they work. I love that so much because on the surface, this movie is kind of dumb. But once you let go of that, the movie's very easy to fall in love with. It's entertaining, it's quick, it doesn't overstay its welcome. The acting's great. The story, like I said, that's typical, but it's approached in a really unique way too, because it seems like the majority of the survivors, or at least all the survivors we meet, are really good people. And so, like I said, you lose out on the whole Mad Max thing, which at this point was being grossly overdone in movies like this. There was always the two factions going head to head for control, and there's none of that in this. So I thought that was really refreshing as well. Oh, Jesus, it's 8 minutes. So look, I'm going to go. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little over 8 minutes while I discussed Night of the Comet. If you liked this review or discussion or whatever this was, don't forget to do something nice for somebody. And Jesus Christ, I've got to start making these shorter. I have been rambling a lot. Sorry about that. Have a good night. I just wanted to say thank you for making it through the entire video. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to remind everyone one more time, even though I've probably already done this in the video that you just watched, to please click the like button as well as the subscribe button because it helps this channel grow. And thank you for hitting like and subscribe, and we will see you guys really soon.